My Lords, I heard state aid described this morning as something people don't get very interested in. Yet I think the range of speakers in this debate, starting at such a ridiculously late hour, puts pay to that claim that there is a lack of interest. And indeed, I would say that there really could hardly be anything more crucial than what the government supports or doesn't support. And that, indeed, is a decision not to support. And as the Noble Lords, Lord Purvis of Tweed and the Noble Lord Whitty pointed out, governments have very often tried to suggest that it was the EU's fault why the UK government was not providing support, but that's a claim that doesn't stand up. And if you look at what that lack of support has given us, we have industry sectors, communities struggling to get a decent quality of life for their members while living within the boundaries of this one fragile planet, something that we're far away from today, whether you look at the level of child and pensioner poverty or the way our society collectively consumes the resources of our share of 3 planets when we only have one. Now, my noble friend Baroness Jones of Moulscombe will later in this debate be looking at the issues of the environment and the lack of strategic direction here, as in so much of Her Majesty's government. It's hard to have a strategic direction when the ship of state is being tossed around by a party whose members are running to and fro on leadership manoeuvres. Now, my speech is going to focus on the democratic and structural concerns about this bill, of which there are many that have already been very clearly set out. I'm going to seek to add to that rather than repeat. One issue that hasn't yet been raised, I believe, is the Bank of England's monetary policy activities are explicitly exempted from the subsidy regime in Clause 46. The explanatory notes don't contain any explanation or justification for this. This is significant because here we're talking about billions of pounds frequently supplied in cheap credit. This could be used in a positive way in terms of environmental objectives or social objectives, and there could be direction in the bill to that. But of course there's also the issue that I've raised very often in other contexts, the problem of what's known as too much finance. And one reason why we're in that situation today, the threat to our security that the overlarge financial sector presents, comes from massive government subsidies in the past, including guarantees to banks that remain too large to fail. Now, I want to pick up the point made by a number of noble lords, and notably the noble Lady Baroness Humphreys, about the reduction in the publication threshold, and also the fact that there's been a removal of legal controls, so that rather than a central pre-approval of subsidies, the system will now rely on challenges from rival businesses to stop harmful subsidies. But with the very, very high limit, rather than the £500 that so often is the public sector norm, how can anyone challenge a subsidy that they don't know exists? There is effectively no control at all. And given the issues that the well-known issues that we have in terms of government contracts that have been so well aired, I hardly need to go into detail, here we've got another potential huge area of concern about lack of transparency. Now, we've already addressed a great deal about the issue around devolved administrations, so I won't go over that same ground. But I will note that one of the reasons why Scotland is particularly concerned about agricultural subsidies is the fact that Scotland has actually made far more progress on land reform and has retained far more small land holdings, a very different kind of agricultural structure to we see in much of England. And these crofting small land holdings are a hugely valued part of Scottish agriculture and indeed community and society, and that does surely require special arrangements of support. And finally, again, many noble lords have covered the issue of how, oddly, the government's levelling up agenda seems to be entirely missing from this bill. And there's actually a levelling down from the EU regional aid system, where higher aid ceilings are permitted in less developed areas. The fact is, my lords, as we've heard from every side of your lordship's house, we're just in a state of total muddle here. This bill does not hold together, and it is asking a lot of your lordship's house to try and make us pull this together. All I know is that we'll try.
Hear, hear.